The Castle of San Felipe. It was built in 1644. The Spanish fortress was built to defend passage to the sea. It was the sole protection from pirates for the Spanish colonies that had begun to settle on Lake Izabal. The Spanish in Segovia, Spain had developed a dish, a method of cooking meat called Cochinillo, where they would take a young whole hog and smoke it until the meat was fall off the bone, much like today's version of pulled pork. And the Mayans there in Guatemala had already been perfecting an ancient dish called Cochinita Pibil, where they would bury a whole hog under the ground in plantain leaves, and it would basically be fall off the bone. There really is no place like home. And for these Spanish soldiers in a fort in a foreign land, Cochinillo from Segovia, Spain would have been this flavor of home. But for them, the closest they could have gotten was Mayan Cochinita Pibil, which was a very similar dish made right there where they were stationed.
Woo! All right, there's Justin, there's our Capitan, and we are headed out to the river.
My home, Cocoa, Florida, is a place of swamps, gators, airboats, frying up gator on the banks of the river, and smoking delicious barbecue on the smoker. These are all unique elements of my hometown. You'd expect to see gators in a swamp, but most people would be surprised to see a herd of cattle crossing the waterway or hanging out in the lily pads. But if you're from Cocoa, this is a familiar sight. Like Spanish Cochinillo or Mayan Cochinita Pibil, pulled pork and smoked meats on the real pit barbecue are a flavor of home to me. And so I want to invite you to the best table in the house, to the table in the back. Come home with me and taste the flavors as we get over the real pit barbecue and smoke up some meats the way we do it in Cocoa, Florida. You have to get started real early because the key to good barbecue is slow and low. You want to get your smoker going, start building your fire with some good hardwoods that you choose. I like to use white oak and pecan wood in a mixture, and you want to get that heat up and everything ready to go so that when your meat is prepared, you can get it right onto the smoker and get it to start cooking. You can get your rub ready and into a pan for seasoning. You can buy one or order it online, whatever you find that you like. I make my own rub, but it's a secret, so I'm not going to share with you what it is. Take your meats and start rolling them into the seasoning and rubbing them well so that they're completely covered. And you want to make sure that you don't use the same seasoning or rub for different types of meat so you don't cross-contaminate. Today I'll be making ribs and chicken and pulled pork out of some Boston butts. So go ahead and get your meat unpackaged and washed and ready to go and seasoned. At this point, we're going to go ahead and put all of our meats on the smokers on different racks, keeping them separated. Again, you don't want to cross-contaminate by having chicken too close or touching the pork. You want to make sure you leave some space in between all these pieces of meat for the smoke to move through and touch all the different sides of the meat, so that meat soaks in that delicious smoky flavor from your hardwoods that are burning in your firebox. Once you have all your meat on the smoker, you can go ahead and take some wood that you've had soaking in some water so it gives some good smoke as you put it into your firebox. You want to keep your smoker between 240 and 250 degrees for the entire time that you're smoking. At this point, your only job is to make sure your firebox stays full and you get that smoke pumping through for the first 2 hours of your smoke time, and you want to just keep that meat cooking slow and low. The first 2 to 3 hours of smoking is the most important, because after 2 to 3 hours, the meat no longer pulls in any of the smoke. So you can go ahead and wrap it up in tin foil, just pull it right off the smoker and wrap it nice and tight in a nice aluminum foil that won't rip, and then put it back on the smoker so that it can sit on there for the rest of its cook time, protected by that aluminum foil. Chicken's going to take about 6 hours to cook. You want to leave it on there until the juices run clear. Your ribs will take about 8 hours, and you want those to fall off the bone, while your bigger pieces of meat like brisket or pulled pork will take about 14 hours. You know the Boston butts are done when the bone in the center pulls out cleanly, so you can go ahead and put it in a clean pan and start to tear it either with your fingers or claws that they make specifically to tear pulled pork with. As I'm finishing my ribs, I like to put brown sugar and some honey for the last hour as I uncover them from the aluminum foil and allow a nice bark to form over the top that gives a sweetness to those ribs as they finish off. Some people like to cut the membrane off the back of the ribs. We leave it on there because we cook them to fall off the bone, and the membrane actually helps keep them together. It's easier to serve them that way to your customers. Don't forget that the key ingredient to good barbecue is cooking them slow and low. So take your time and make sure they come out just the way you want them. It'll pay off the end when it comes time to feed the people that you love. You see those smiles on their faces as they're enjoying that delicious barbecue. It was definitely time well spent. So, it's your turn. Go ahead and get in the kitchen and cook.